Howdy. Give me a moment. I'm sure everything's situated. Alright. So, today is the day that I am, well, I'd say close enough to formally finished with boss number 4, Bitter Rind. So this one, because it's bitter, the crafting ingredients are cocoa beans and nether wart. So... I love the wolf howling sound for this. It's hilarious. Let's... Oh, that was fast. Messed up. No. Let me get my items out. So, the gimmick with this guy... Focus the Guardian. Either one works. Is the rings. And this is quite a dangerous fight if you're not prepared. Slow falling potions are very useful, or if you fight him in elevated terrain. He's on phase 2. Uh-oh. He's gonna summon his buds. This is not good. Get going quickly. He's around for too long. Yep, there they are. The buds. Normally, it would be nice to have cover, but, okay, thank God, I'm not dead. Yes! Okay, he's dead. Hard work paid off. But for this one, since I know that my mic works now, I'm going to give a more in-depth explanation to what the heck is actually going on. I'm not sure what this is about. I haven't seen it do that before. But first, the loot. When you kill him, he'll drop 3 things. He'll drop the Shield of the Submerged Sin, simple enough. When you equip it, it gives you Dolphin's Grace. There's not really a body of water for me to show this off in, but... Oh god, I didn't mean to bump that. You know what Dolphin's Grace does. That's no problem. The consumable is bitter herbs. The taste is awful, but it's worth it. Upon use, it will give you Wither, as well as a random status effect of Power 3 for 2 minutes. In my case, I got Speed, so lucky me. But I can keep eating these and gain just a myriad of buffs. I'm probably going to increase the amount of Wither that it gives you, because this is kind of strong right now. I don't want this to interfere with it. Get this out of here. And this is an old thing. This is back when I was... I want to say this is the very next thing that I did after the explosive crossbow Datapack. US patent number 2157. It's a crossbow that fires lightning bolts. Like crossbow bolts. And this thing, when it lands, you'll notice the little end rod. That is the quote-unquote chain lightning. Find, I think it's sold there. Spawn a bunch of pigs. And it can arc between a whole bunch of mobs at once. I think it can also seek through walls, but I'm not entirely sure. Based on that, I think it can. But now for the fun part, at least for me. The mechanics of how this monstrosity works. So give me a moment here to tab over to the window. We're doing this again. So this is the monstrosity that I've been working on for the past... It's gotta be the past 2 months at this rate. But if you notice the things that say salty dog or the salty boss, sour grape is the, what's the name of the boss? It was like Sawyer the Brood Mother, that's what it was. It was, Sweet Tooth the Ravenous. Up here is the initial stuff, Sweet Tooth the Ravenous, and their loot, Sour Grape, and their loot, Dog Salty. There's a lot, there was so much code for Salty. And his loot, and Rind, and Rind's loot. And let's just go over this bit by bit. So a lot of this is basically just generic, it's like functions and like setup. The way that I have it set up is that boss has a certain amount of absorption and health. And this is a bit more complicated because there's two of them, but the way that I have it working is that whenever either of them reach 0 absorption, they'll set both of them to be phase 2. And also, when one is not around, the other one will instantly die. Now, stuff over here is the pulse. The pulse is that shulker blast of shulker bullets that you saw. And the guardian angels is the spinning invisible guardians. And let me see if I can just do whatever function. There are actually 3 specific functions that I wrote for this, and they're all iteratives. Now, you might remember me talking about this in the square root video, but iteratives can be very, very useful. So right below it, notice that I set the input to 33. Now, let me head on over to here. Get out of the way. And this one is relatively simple. What it does is it sets the value to 0, or it removes 1 from the value, teleports the shulker pulse marker that indicates which direction to look, and summons a shulker bullet in front of it with that special tag, no gravity, and no sounds. And if it's less than 0, it'll repeat. So what that'll do is, I think, give me a moment to tab back over to Minecraft. I need to be kind of careful, because for some reason, if you tab out of OBS, or if you tab out of Minecraft with OBS, it will make Minecraft crash instantly. I don't know why it does it, but it does. But suppose that I do scoreboard, players, set at S, boss bitter rind, rotator, set my own to 33, and then do function. It should. Oh. Right, it's not doing it because I'm not. Let's see. I'm pretty sure because it only executes. Yeah, dang it. It doesn't execute because I don't have the marker attached to me. But if I did, then it would have worked. And you notice that it did run all those commands, because it does have the 197 commands from running that 33 times. Now, back to this. This is a trick that I actually learned from a friend, that what you can do is you can get the position, you can get the X, Y, and Z position, store them as scoreboards, and then get the position of the other thing. So in this case, it would be just imagine all those shulkers, all their positions, relative to the position of the marker that spawned them. Then it'll subtract the two and input those values as motion values. So let me actually spawn the boss again real quick to show this off, because I can actually change the speed of the bullets to whatever I want because I'm using this method. So suppose that wait a sec for this to spawn. add more sounds to make it more flamboyant. You notice it's going a certain speed right now, but suppose that I tab over to here. This is the magic number that I can fiddle around with. It's at 0.00666, yada yada yada. Suppose that I want to increase it to 2. Oh, no. Actually, let me make it slower. Let me make it way, way slower. So now, I do a reload. They're like comically slow. I'm curious what this thing looks like in phase 2. Come on. That is funny. But from that, let's set the values back to what they were. And next up is the Guardian Angels in phase 2. It's a similar affair, but it's a bit more complicated. Because it's not as simple as just saying, suppose that I made it, I don't know. Suppose that I made it spawn, like, let's just say this is where the boss is, and spawn the Guardians out like that. I don't know. I'm just goofing around at this point. And all of them will rotate around. So suppose that I'm like right here, TP at S, tilde, 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 tilde. Okay. I could make it do something like, I don't know, 10. Have it kind of like rotate like this. This isn't perfect because I made up these numbers on the fly, but after 360 uses of this, or 36 rather, it should rotate to exactly where I was. Here's the problem. What happens if this moves? Suppose this moves. Now, because all of these were working off of facing this would start to rotate in an arc like this. This would start to rotate in a similar fashion, but slightly off-kilter. And these two would start to rotate at a further distance. Almost imagine like planets. So, how do we fix this? You might wonder. Well, think of it like a carousel. There needs to be some sort of beam that attaches these. That way, when this moves, everything moves with it. And the beams that I have set up are, let's see, within the score and spawn function. What this does is it spawns a Guardian. And I believe this does it 16 times. Move back over. Yeah, 16 times. What it does is every time it spawns a Guardian, it will add 1 to every single Guardian's internal ID. So the first Guardian the newest Guardian will have a value of 1. Second newest will have a value of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, what have you. This is going to be extremely useful in a moment. Because it does this, it plays the sound, runs the particle, and then every frame, it will have a series of actions with that marker. It will rotate it by 6 degrees. And let's see if I can find it. Here it is. It will run what is known as iterate rotate. Now this one I'm pretty proud of. What it will do is it will run... Let's see if I can follow this. It executes as the marker orbit is just each of those Guardians. I made it so that the function could be basically whatever entity you want, so you can make it like witches or skeletons. Fun fact, ghasts and blazes seem to work well with this as well. But interestingly enough, guardians won't actually fire at you if you're a certain distance above or below them. So my original plan was to have it orbit above the boss's head, but that actually doesn't work because they won't see you. But I suppose for something like blazes or skeletons, they would. But the way that this works is as that marker orbit, at the position of the marker, if the score of the marker orbit is equal to, or if the score of the guardian is equal to the score of that marker, then run this teleport command. In essence, what I'm doing, and then after that, it will rotate by some amount. In essence, what this is doing is, it's going to be kind of a crude way of showing it. Let me add in a window capture real quick. MS Paint. I'm very professional. Suppose that we had a set of guardians. They're all kind of like focused here. What it'll do is it will move out. Number 1 will be right here, and then it'll rotate. Number 2 will be right here. Rotate. Number 3 right here. This is a terrible drawing, but it gets the point across. Onwards and onwards all the way around each of these spokes. Now think of this like a carnival wheel, like a carousel wheel. Every single one of these points, 4, 5, 6, 7, blah, 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 are all bound to the center of this wheel. Whatever the rotation of this wheel is, all of these guardians will rotate at the same speed and at the same distance. So, and as well as that, I have it run a team join for all of them called Does Not Collide. It's basically what it says in the tin. Makes it so that it can't collide with players. And the final bit that I do want to show off, just because you might wonder, and I never explicitly brought it, I don't think I ever explicitly brought it up, is how does the death work? Because they all have specific particle effects when they die. Let me scroll all the way to the top and look for Death Handler. Every single one of these bosses, when they spawn, spawns with a Death Handler. And in the case of Salty Dog, he also spawns with a Boat Handler, but it's basically unrelated. The Boat Handler is just for tracking the position of the boss so that it can spawn the boat to rotate around it. And I didn't need to make it a carousel kind of setup because the boss moves so slowly, and it's not like the position of the boat doesn't matter too much. I'm getting off topic though. Every single one of these death handlers will always teleport to the nearest zombie, the nearest boss zombie. If you can't find one, in the case of Sweet Tooth, it will spawn its loot, play the Wither Hearth sound, play a particle effect, and die. In the case of Sour Grape, let's see, spawn Sour Grape's loot, play a burp sound, play some particles, and die. This is the point where I got sick of using .json files, because that's the file type that works with, that is the file type that is required for loot tables. Let me just show you one for Sour Grape. I hate working with these things. All of that is just for two items. Or 3 items, rather, because it's the trousers, the grape seeds, and the cherry bomb. That is 106 lines for 3 items. Screw that. I'm just going to spawn them in manually. From that point on, I just said I'm going to spawn them in manually. And that's what? The head cannon, cluster TNT, plays a splash sound, runs particles, and dies. Finally, Bitter Rind, same situation. see. So, yeah. And quick thing. The patent, at first glance, it seems kind of unrelated, doesn't it? Because it's like... I don't know. It's like you have this thing, it's like this is very much related to swimming, this is related to the bitter taste, and then you kind of just have lightning bow. Well... I got my own recipe, mid-recipe. There's a very important reason why this drops. Because do bear in mind, this boss spawns that Ring of Guardians, and that Ring of Guardians will mess you up if you're not careful. It's very fortunate to not die on the spot from that. Oh, I gotta reload, I think, because I still have it set to the old motion values. Yep, that fixed it. Phase 2, there we go. I'm gonna wait for a tick for the enemies to spawn. Remember how this works. It will go to every possible nearby entity until it can't find one anymore. Boop. Made no sounds, but that just shredded every single one in one hit. I don't have a lot of health, but that's still extremely, extremely useful. That's why I added it. But apart from that, I think that's everything, actually. So from here on in, we only have one boss left out of the principal 5. Because I had... Each of them I sort of represent with a piece of armor. The head region belongs to Salty Dog, the chest region belongs to Sweet Tooth, the pants region belongs to Sour Grape, the shield belongs to Bitter, and the boots belong to Umami, who will be the final boss of this set. Expect that in... I don't want to give proper deadlines, but I'd say within a week, 2 weeks, perhaps a few weeks. It depends on how my schedule shakes out. But regardless, thanks for watching. Have a good day, y'all.